Hey, how's it going everybody? Welcome back to Aussie Fish Keeping. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you 5 ways you can get crystal clear water in your aquarium. So most of my aquariums, I'd like to think they have pretty clear water, particularly this one over here. The water's like immaculate in that aquarium. And the way I keep my water so clear is through these 5 simple methods. But yeah, I guess without any further ado, let's just jump straight into today's video with the first tip. So the first thing you can do to get crystal clear water in your aquarium is pretty obvious, and that's improve your filtration. So your filter does actually extract all of these small or large particles that are floating around freely in your water column, and those particles are what makes your water look dirty or cloudy. So having a nice high power, super efficient filter is really great at sucking out all of that dirt and detritus. Now, in particular, the best way you can actually get all of the little particles out is using a super fine filter media. So a fine filter media like a fine sponge or filter wool or any other sort of fine medias like that, I guess, are great at getting out those microscopic little particles, which when they are suspended in the water, they can actually make your water look extremely cloudy. And a lot of the time you'll see these sort of particles come about after a water change or after you've topped up the aquarium. And that's just because they sit on the top layer of your substrate or in your substrate. And as soon as some water brushes over it, it just kicks it all up into the water. So having a nice fine filter media helps get all that out of the water column. And you're also going to want to make sure you're properly maintaining your filter. So you don't want to clean it out too often. But what I find, I try and clean my filters around once a month. And that makes sure that I'm not over cleaning it. So over cleaning can strip the filter of all of that beneficial bacteria, which is obviously what you need to control the nitrates, nitrites, and ammonia in your aquarium. So once a month is, I find, a good time to clean it. And that just means that you're getting out all the gunk that is collected over that 1 month, and it should be nice and efficient again for the next month. And another thing you can do, like I mentioned earlier, is improve your filtration. So you may find that your filter isn't really fit for the job in a particular aquarium. In my opinion, the best sort of filters are sponge filters. So if you are noticing your aquarium is still cloudy, even though you have like another filter in there, I would highly recommend trying to get a sponge filter, just because they obviously have some super nice fine filter media, which is the sponge, and that does help strip all of the little particles in the water. And they're also a very cheap filter option as well. But yeah, with that being said, improving or properly maintaining your filter and filter media is a great way to get crystal clear water in your aquarium. Moving on to the next tip on our list, it's trying to prevent overfeeding. So overfeeding is obviously when you're feeding your fish too much food, and this can actually happen a lot, and you may not even notice that you're doing it. So there's actually a few ways you can prevent overfeeding. Number 1 is feeding your fish as much as they can eat in 2 to 3 minutes. 2 to 3 minutes later, if there's any leftover food on the bottom of your aquarium, you should suck all of that out with a siphon, and that's just going to prevent all of that breaking down and stirring up into your water, which does foul your water a lot and can make it look very cloudy. Another thing you can actually do is feed your fish a high quality fish food. So a high quality fish food is a lot easier for your fish to absorb and convert into energy, which means they're not actually going to be expelling a lot of waste. Whereas a low quality fish food with lots of fillers like wheat and things like that, your fish can't actually properly digest those and absorb the nutrients from it. So there's going to be a lot more waste in your aquarium, which does obviously contribute to the poor water quality. So yeah, with that being said, preventing overfeeding is another great way to get nice and crystal clear water in your aquarium. Moving on to the third tip on our list. This one again is pretty self-explanatory, and that's doing regular water changes. So regular weekly or bi-weekly water changes are the best in my opinion. Not only do they help dilute the amount of nitrites, nitrates, and ammonia in your water, but they also can help sucking out any of that detritus or even leftover food, as well as fish waste and other like decaying organic material. And when I say doing water changes, I don't mean doing like complete water changes. About 25% each week or every 2 weeks is the perfect amount. And what I'd actually recommend is trying to get like a gravel vac, or just being super careful with your siphon and trying to get into little nooks and crannies in your aquarium and trying to suck out any of that detritus or small waste particles, just because those 2 things alone really do foul up your water a lot, and it can make your water seem a lot dirtier than it actually is. But another great thing about water changes, like I mentioned earlier, after you do your water change and you're refilling your aquarium, it can actually push a lot of the detritus or little particles that you missed up into the water column, and that's going to make it a lot easier for your filter to suck up. But But yeah, with that being said, doing regular water changes is another great way to help keep your water nice and crystal clear. Moving on to the next tip on our list, this one again is pretty self-explanatory, and that's trying to prevent overstocking. So foul water or murky water is one of the most obvious signs that your aquarium is overstocked. You could have an aquarium that's super small with heaps of fish in there and the water's crystal clear, and that could mean that your aquarium's not actually overstocked and your bioload isn't actually too much for your whole system to handle. Although if you do have an overstocked aquarium, you will notice that your aquarium is getting a lot dirtier a lot quicker, and your water will pretty much all the time look cloudy. So you'll see this tank here, this is probably getting to be a little bit overstocked. It's just heaps of endless in there. Although like I said, the water is crystal clear, so there is actually basically a little ecosystem going on in there where the plants and the filter are actually working together to make sure that the system stays stable. But yeah, I almost guarantee if I didn't have that plant in there or that algae in there, then it would most likely be overstocked. The water would be murky pretty much 100% of the time. So not only does overstocking increase the waste, but it also increases the amount of food you need to feed, which does again increase the chance of actually overfeeding your fish. So it's always best to just try and understock your aquarium rather than overstock it, and that's just going to mean your water stays nice and clean and your whole aquarium just stays nice and clean. Moving on to the next tip on our list, it's actually going to be controlling algae growth. So this one can be a little bit hard, particularly if you don't really know what you're doing. I don't really know what I'm doing, if I'm being honest, but for the most part I'm mainly talking about trying to prevent green water in your aquarium, just because that can make your aquarium not crystal clear. So green water happens when you've got a lot of nutrients, low flow, and super high lighting. And I've actually got heaps of green water outside in some of my outdoor ponds and setups out there. And in one of them in particular, I've got an IBC out there. It's completely green. I definitely can't see to the bottom of the IBC. It is super murky. So green water isn't actually like bad for your fish by any means, and it can actually be pretty beneficial for them. But like I said, it does make the water super cloudy and you can't see anything pretty much. So yeah, the best way to minimize the risk of getting green water is doing regular water changes. So if you notice your water starting to turn a little bit green, I would highly recommend doing a 100% water change, or maybe like a 90%, although 100% would be optimal just because it's going to take most of the spores out of the water. There's obviously going to be some left on the gravel and on like your glass and things like that, but if you can control your parameters once you refill your tank, then it shouldn't outbreak again. So yeah, regular water changes is important. Maintain proper lighting, so around 6 to 8 hours a day I find is best, but you can go a little bit longer, say 10 to 12. It really does just depend how high your light is, how many plants you got, how many fish you got. It's really depending on your system. But yeah, controlling your lighting just basically minimizes the risk of the algae from blooming, and you're also going to want to maintain stable nutrient levels. So the reason your nutrient levels become unbalanced is because your filter's not working efficiently, or it could mean that your aquarium is overstocked and you've got heaps of fish waste in there. But yeah, with that being said, controlling algae is another great way to help keep your water crystal clear. Now, I know I said this was only going to be 5 tips, but I've just sorted one while I was filming this. I'm going to sneak it in, and that's going to be adding live aquarium plants. So I mentioned live aquarium plants in basically all my videos. I really do think they are super beneficial to have in your aquarium, but basically the reason you're going to want live aquarium plants is because number one, they can actually trap all of that detritus and particles, particularly big bushy plants. So this algae, I guarantee if I lift that up, there's a bunch of detritus under there. But because it's trapped by the plant, it's actually not being stirred up into the water column, making it look cloudy or anything. So yeah, aquarium plants can trap the detritus, but they can also minimize the amount of nutrients, and they can also shade out the light in your aquarium, which does minimize the risk of algae outbreaks. So obviously they use nutrients to photosynthesize, and by using them up, it means there's no excess left in the water column for the algae. And when they grow out over your aquarium, they can shade a lot of light, which once again means there's a lot lower risk for algae to bloom. But yeah, with that being said, adding live aquarium plants is another great way to keep the water in your aquarium crystal clear. So with that being said, that is actually going to bring us to the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope this video helps a few of you guys out. If you did enjoy today's video, please be sure to go down and subscribe, and while you're down there, smash the like button and comment your thoughts on today's video. I always love going down there and reading them all, and I try to reply back to as many as I can. Also, if you're looking for any fish, botanicals, or aquarium products, make sure to go check out my website, aussiefishkeeping.com. But yeah, with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all in that next video.